The NBA trade market continues to get more and more expensive. We have teams asking for first-round picks for role players, contenders trying to dodge the tax, and Giannis tank scenario that could reshape the entirety of the NBA. We're going to get into it all and more right after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of NBA Central, your number one spot for everything basketball related. I'm the host, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at NBA Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go and get into this content for today. So it came down at that the Dallas Mavericks are open to moving players on their roster, not named Anthony Davis, but they're not just giving players away. Reportedly, according to Mark Stein, is that they have high asking prices for both Naji Marshall and Max Christie. The Mavs are looking for a first-round pick for Marshall, and the asking price for Max Christie will be similar as well. But Dallas does, prize the young wing in Max Christie. So, this is going to be interesting, right? Like, the trade market is always so different, right? And we used to have deals that we looked at and viewed kind of shaped or set a tone in the trade market, right? But I think we're seeing that it's so conditional upon the situations. There's a lot more variances now between what you can get. You look at a player like Luka and what he went for, right? But then look at the first round picks that Desmond Bane got, right? Like not even a year between those trades. You look for a player like Trae Young who's moved for no picks, but then teams are looking for first-round picks, unprotected first-round picks for players like Naji Marshall. The Bulls reportedly want an unprotected first for Kobe White as well, which could limit the trade market for him. And it's interesting because you did used to have these deals, and you're like, all right, bet the prices have been set for this year's trade market, and now you're not seeing that as much. And I'm sure that has to do with the specific cap situations of each team, teams valuing first-round picks a lot more, both before they go into a rebuild and just, in the general of, teams, they want first-round picks back to avoid the second tax apron because, you're looking at cost-controlled rookie-scale contracts if you get those picks right. And so it's just very interesting. Right now, I want to make no mistake about it. Like, Naji Marshall is having career highs across the board. Usually players that are in that right now, in that season, they're going to try to get a first-round pick back. 14.7 points per game, 5 rebounds per game as well. He's in only his 6th year, and he's shooting 54.5% from the floor this season. You look at Max Christie. Why do I keep wanting to say crispy? I'm fat. Let's stop thinking about food, Haize. Max Christie, right, who has turned into an absolute 3-and-D wing for that Mavericks team as well. And when you look at the fact that they got him is basically a throw-in in the Anthony Davis-Luka Doncic trade, right? But now, with him being 6'5", he's averaging 13.3 points and on 48% shooting from the field, 45% shooting from three, and 86% shooting from the free throw line. He has definitely had a great season as well per his role. And so the Mavs who, could be, and we've heard, if they are trading players and looking to stack first-round picks because they're going to be wanting young running mates that make sense long-term for, to play with Cooper Flag. So it makes some sense. I would even go so far to say you may want to actually think to keep some of those guys, but, while they're looking to try to trade and see what the value they can get now, the Anthony Davis thing is kind of up and down in air. We also heard that they're not necessarily waiting on Kyrie Irving to make a decision about his future, but then kind of is. Like, we've heard conflicting reports on that. The Mavs are going to be an interesting team to watch at this trade deadline and in the offseason because, of course, not only could they move Anthony Davis, which could be huge, if they do decide to do something crazy and move Kyrie Irving as well, like, what does that then look? And if you're getting first-round picks back for Naji Marshall and Max Christie, how many first-round picks you want? All of them, Haize. They want all the first-round picks, as they should. So, the Mavs are going to be a team to watch here at the trade deadline and how they continue to reshape that team around, of course, Cooper Flag and the new direction that they have been, given with the Luka trade and then turn around and getting the number one overall pick. We'll see what happens in that one. They find themselves right now only 1.5 games back of a potential play-in appearance. We'll see if I doubt they're going to get that. But again, that's just for the nature of the conversation, right? And that's without Kyrie Irving returning. Like I said, reportedly, they're not waiting necessarily on Kyrie to make a decision about his future. He's not waiting to see where the team is before he makes his return, which could be, sometime soon. We just don't have a timetable right now on that. But, for other players, if they do decide to move Daniel Gafford as well, we've heard some stuff about Trae. This could be a team that over the next 2 transactional periods, meaning between the trade deadline now and free agency and the draft and the offseason, we could see the Mavs make a number of moves that really give us that that direction on where they plan on taking their roster now in the future. And so, we shall see what's going to happen there. But look out for the Mavs. Let me know what you guys think down below. When you hear teams like the Mavericks are looking for first-round picks for Max Christie, Naji Marshall, as well as like the Chicago Bulls looking for unprotected first in the case of Kobe White, how do you view, that asking price? Is it something that you view as crazy, or do you view it as, considering where the place that team is, the youth of those players as well, and the value of those deals, maybe they are right to ask for that? I want to hear from you guys on that one down below. With that said, let's get into the next topic for today's episode as well, and that is the Kings. The Kings are also reportedly looking for a first-round pick for Keon Ellis. Now, Keon Ellis has been reported as one of the Kings players that are most likely to be traded. We know that they're open to trading Zach LaVine. They probably love to trade DeMar DeRozan and get some type of value back for that. And a lot of people are, of course, waiting to see what are they going to do with Domantas Sabonis. But Keon Ellis is a player that, we've talked a little bit about if they decide to move him and his defense and how he is viewed as a player that has some tremendous upside. Now, he doesn't play a lot of minutes, like a huge number of minutes from the Sacramento Kings. He didn't do that either under their last coach either. So I think a natural question to ask there is like, is there a reason why you can only play him a certain amount of minutes per game, right? So he did play last season, though, the career most 24.4. He did have 8.3 points per game, and his shooting splits actually improved, 48% from the field, 43% from three. This year he's shooting 39% from the field and 36% from three. But we all kind of know, like, scoring isn't really what you're looking for Keon Ellis to do. If he can develop and just be a consistent shooter, right? With last year shooting almost 49% from the field, 44% from three, all he has to do is make defenses pay for sagging off on him. At 26 years old, though, it's the defensive ability by Keon Ellis. And when you look at some of these teams around the league that need guards, but they have high-scoring players already on their team, like a Minnesota Timberwolves team, what would that look like with Keon Ellis being out there next to Anthony Edwards? Does he go back to his over 40% shooting from three, which is enough to just keep defenses honest when you have a player like Anthony Edwards and how they're able to play up front? That's a question that you have to ask yourself there, right? So I understand teams having for that. And, again, according to Mark Stein, that they are indeed looking for a first-round pick to even part with him. It makes some sense because he's not necessarily somebody that you have to part on right away or now. So that's what we'll see. Now, is minutes dropping or is it concern? Why have his minutes dropped? But it being 6'4", a defensive first player, a team that probably would be looking at him to extend him as well. So, there you go on that one. That's what you got to look. That's what you have to look at this with Keon Ellis. But I like Keon Ellis as a player. I want to be clear there. As a player, I really do like Keon Ellis, even with his limitations, because I think he's just the type of player that you can plug in to almost any scenario, and he's going to find a way to be productive because of where his skills are, right? And if like I said, if he just makes teams pay if they do decide to try to sag off on him, that's really all you're looking at for a player that has a defensive upside of a Keon Ellis. And to see him in a winning situation again would be really fun to see how that will work out for him. So I wouldn't be surprised if a team, especially that their first round pick is going to be somewhere sub 20s. I wouldn't be surprised if a team is willing to give that up for Keon Ellis. Now, is that enough? Or are the Kings looking for not just a unprotected first, but where that first is going to sit? That's a fair question to ask there. But I just look at this kid and I look at how he impacts the game defensively. And when you have guards that can impact the game defensively like that, you tend to keep those players around. Last year, despite it was his best offensive season, but he had a point differential of plus 50 last season, plus 5 last season, and an expected wins added of 12. Right, that's the type of impact that I think if you put him in the right situation, he can have again. He can be one of those players that you look at and you're like, hey, the stat sheet may not say a lot, but in watching this game, you can't doubt the impact that Keon Ellis had for this team. And so he's an interesting prospect, I think, especially for teams looking to add a little something without it needing to take up a huge, part of their cap space next year. He's a really good option for teams like that. So, we'll see what ends up happening for Keon Ellis. I like Keon Ellis personally. I wouldn't hate it if he was on my team. But again, being an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season to where you do have to pay him, does that make teams more likely or less likely to go in on him? Because they could very well just wait and make it, because he's unrestricted, make a big offer sheet for him in the offseason and then not give up your first round pick. So I think that's what teams are going to be looking at for when it comes to Keon Ellis. But you guys know, we'll cover it here and we'll see what happens with that one. Next up, the 76ers are amongst many teams that reportedly are looking at the Brooklyn Nets as a place to dump off some of their salary and get below the salary cap, right? This one comes from Mark Stein. It says the 76ers are among the teams that the Nets could partner on a deal before the deadline. goes so far as to say this. Based on the 76ers' recent history of trading to get under the luxury tax, there's an expectation that they'll make at least one trade ahead of the February 5th trade deadline. The Sixers are $7 million above the allowable threshold to avoid being taxed. They are also around $1 million away from being a first apron team and facing penalties. Duckland tax will be simple for the 76ers. They have 6 players making more than $7 million. Joel Embiid, Paul George, Tyrese Maxey, VJ Edgecombe, Quentin Grimes, and Kelly Oubre Jr. And so they're looking to dump some of those players that are making above that. And I think it makes the candidates probably simple. They're not trading VJ Edgecombe. They're not trading Tyrese Maxey. I don't think any team takes Paul George on a $54 million contract. Joel Embiid, they're not going to trade either. So that leaves Quentin Grimes and Kelly Oubre Jr. Now, Quentin Grimes, because he took the qualifying offer, has an inherent no trade clause that he would have to waive for them to move him. Kelly Oubre Jr. is not the player that's set up for that. So with that said, it does look like Oubre is probably the most plausible to move at the trade deadline and not take salary back, so that way you can stay beneath the first tax apron. That's it. Andre Drummond is a candidate as well. We've heard that. They are shopping Andre Drummond. They can dump his salary off. He's on a $5 million expiring contract. So between Kelly Oubre Jr. and Andre Drummond, if you move those two guys back and don't take as much salary back as you send out, that is going to open up a scenario for the 76ers to get below the salary cap, the luxury tax, like they tend to do. So we'll see that. We'll see what happens with that one, right? So, they're a team that's interested in that. And Daryl Morey, we know that he's a guy that's going to get creative when it comes down to it as well. You look at them having Johnny Broom, Dembana, Dominique Barlow, Joel Embiid. They have players at the center position, so Andre Drummond's probably on his way out of there as well. We just got to see what's going to happen with the rest of those players. But reportedly, the Toronto Raptors, the Denver Nuggets, and Phoenix Suns also could be teams that are looking to partner with the Brooklyn Nets to try to dump off some salary because they're $15 million below the salary cap. They can take on and absorb a lot of salary without having to give anything back, which would create a trade exception for you as well. So, there's some benefits to it. And so the 76ers are going to probably be a team that's looking to do that. As it pointed out in the article, they've done that the last couple of years. There's reason to believe they're going to do it again. Now, we're going to talk about a report from Tim Bontemps in regards to Giannis. He actually talked about the future with Giannis could come down to how well does he embrace the Bucks tanking the rest of the season. This goes from Tim Bontemps, who said this. If you want to construct a path to have the Bucks being able to convince Giannis this place can win long term, here's what it is. He's basically out the rest of the season. They're already, as you said, 8th in the lottery standings. They can fall pretty far in those lottery standings with the roster they have. They have a real shot, I think, to be in the top 5 in the draft. That's from Tim Bontemps. Now, that is something that I'll say, as much as I've been talking about and criticizing the Milwaukee Bucks and them trying to trade their pick they can in 2031 or 2032, I never thought about them tanking this season. And the reason why is because the whole point of Giannis reportedly could be wanting a trade is because he wants to be in a situation to win. But if the Bucks can talk to Giannis and say, hey, we feel like if we can get a top 5 to 10 pick in here this year with how deep this draft is, we can get you the talent that you can need. And that also could benefit the Milwaukee Bucks as well, that even if they do eventually have to move Giannis Antetokounmpo, if you get a top 5 pick in this draft, and get and pick right and get the talent that can be your next franchise player, and you still move Giannis in the offseason, that can be a perfect storm of scenarios for this Milwaukee Bucks team. And I'll go so far as to say this personally: I test Giannis on that because it's a win-win, right? To me, if we say, hey Giannis, listen, we're going to take the rest of the season, we're going to sit you out, go ahead and take your time out, whatever it is, and you and regardless of that, if you decide to do that, he has to live with it. And then at that point, you're now looking at it and saying, all right, we get a top 5 pick. Is that AJ? Is that Caleb Wilson? Right? Who is that we can get to add to this team? If we get that guy, all right, cool. Giannis, we got a young player for you. Still got Miles Turner. You still got AJ Green. You still got these Ryan Rollins. You still got these other players as well. But now we have our young talent that we think we can build around, which then it's like, all right, bet Giannis asked out. Now, hey, Caleb, this is your team. So there's a lot of different scenarios with that, and this is one that I honestly haven't thought about, but I doubt the Milwaukee Bucks will do anything that Giannis is not involved in and agreeable with, in my personal opinion. But we'll see what's going to happen with that one. But if you enjoyed today's episode, man, make sure you guys hit that like button, subscribe to the channel as well, turn on notifications if you never want to miss an episode. The trade deadline is coming fast, and one move could change every single thing. That still is Giannis Antetokounmpo officially asking for a trade. But drop your boldest prediction for the trade deadline down below. You can follow us at NBA Central Pod. Send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. NBA Central Show at gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the number one spot for everything basketball related. And I'll catch you guys the next time I feel like making a video. Probably tomorrow. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.